Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Matticio. I'm the Director and Chief Curator at the Blaffer Art Museum, and I'm so pleased to welcome you to tonight's edition of Convergence Research, starring Reema, who will be sort of enlightening us very soon with her performance. But before then, I just want to give a few thank yous. We're very pleased and grateful that Houston was able to avoid Hurricane Laura so that we can bring you this performance tonight. And as always, I want to thank Amanda Powers and Colleen Maynard and everyone at the Blaffer for all of their help and support for this program, and especially for Melissa Noble, who is our ongoing curator for Convergence Research, who does so much to bring this program together. We're so pleased. I know this has been a very eventful week with the beginning of classes at UH and, this near miss on the hurricane, but we're so grateful for you to join this evening. This is a program where we really celebrate interdisciplinary research and experimental performance. And we're especially proud when we can highlight a UH graduate. And so I want to thank Reema. I want to thank everyone again for being here. And I will hand it over to Melissa to introduce the artist for this evening.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, I'm so grateful.
Oh, you went on to mute, Melissa.
Okay, can you hear me now? I must have clicked it by accident again. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to the Blaffer Museum for allowing and supporting this program. This program is about supporting students and faculty in the College of the Arts. And we've this summer been able to expand a little bit further abroad, actually because of this virtual way of doing things. And so that has been a pleasant surprise given the circumstances. I want to introduce Reema. Reema was born in South Dakota, grew up in California, Damascus, Syria, and is currently based in Houston. In 2007, she received her Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Art Institute in Houston in interior design and has been a practicing designer for the last 13 years. In 2020, this last year, she graduated with her MFA from the School of Art at University of Houston in interdisciplinary practice and emerging forms. And her work is focused on transmedia storytelling. She uses digital and analog media to tell narrative stories across platforms. And so tonight she's going to give us an artist talk, but also show us and demonstrate some of this work. And I'm so excited to get to experience it. So welcome, Reema. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for that great introduction. I am going to share my slides here. I have a presentation set forth. Okay, so you've heard a little about me, and I focus specifically on transmedia storytelling. How this talk is going to go, I will share about this project, Alison Dark, and I will have some stopping points throughout so you guys can recap, ask me some questions, get some clarity if I'm going a little fast. And then at the end, there'll be 15 minutes for Q&A for you to ask whatever you want. This project has been in the works for about 10 years, and it's really important and very near and dear to my heart because of how I've collaborated on it, and the interdisciplinarity of the work has been super important and integral. So Alison Dark, the website there, you're more than welcome to check it out. It's a conceptual website with some of the things that we've been working on. I started this project in about 2008 with my writing partner, Michael, and we had this idea. He came to me and said, hey, I want to write a book and it has images in it and the images tell the story. And I was like, ooh, I can draw, let's do this. And we hammered out I would say our first rough draft in about 9 months. And we've been working on tooling the transmedia portion of it ever since. We've put it on the shelf, taken it off of the shelf, and now we are here. So to give you a little understanding of what this project is, it's multifactorial. First and foremost, we start off with the young adult novel that is told in pictures and words with interactive bonus features. It is a modern day fantasy thriller with twisted worldwide folklore, with secrets and stories, and about the pain and joy of family. The first novel is actually one in a series of 7, and we start off seeing Alison Dark herself having to go and find her father within 7 days using clues hidden in her mother's fairy tales. And the companion to that is the mobile game, which I will talk a little bit more about, and how the collaboration in transmedia came together. But what is transmedia? Well, it is a way that a story is articulated through different media, and the method in which various platforms can deliver a story. Each distinct medium shapes the mechanics of a narrative, and the transition from one platform to the next immerse the audience in the story. Transmedia or multi-platform stories celebrate each type of media and their strength in storytelling. So it's not just a book that has some pretty illustrations. The illustrations are actually very integral in telling the story. Some of the narrative artwork from the book, to give you an idea, these are flashbacks that Alison has, and you as the reader almost kind of need to put them together as you're reading through. And by the end, you get a whole picture of what's going on here. It is only ever told in images. So you actually have to, quote unquote, read the images. Alison herself is an artist, and sometimes she can't really describe what's going on or why something is fearful, and so she draws it, and you get to see these images from her sketchbook, and the narrative flows around these imagery. I don't know what this felt like. It was so awful. Let me just draw it for you. Might be something that you would see in the text. Here is one bonus feature in the climax of the novel. So Alison has come to this precipice, this huge revelation in her story, and she's finally realizing a very deep truth. And in that moment, we have a link to a bonus feature that the reader can choose to follow or not. And if they should choose to follow it, they'll actually get more depth. They'll see in this one Dad's perspective. And this was really, really important, getting it right, getting the emotional portion of it right, getting the placement of it right within the story, and then collaborating on that with an actor, and collaborating on that with another designer and friend of mine to be able to shoot this. So I couldn't do it myself. And I'll show you just a little snippet of this video. Again, this is a work in progress. I'm not quite finished with it. As much of everything with this project, it's a very big undertaking. So you get the behind the scenes look. All right. So that one you actually need to read the story to be able to understand. Some portions of the bonus features you do not, and some portions you do. And again, that's another thing that we've had to work on and make sure the timing is right and the placement is right. So let me take a pause here. Does anyone have any questions for me so far? Feel free to unmute your mic and just ask away.
Not a question, but that little short definitely reminded me of David Lynch.
Oh, okay. In what way?
Very much the like cutting in between it. So like it's like and having like graphics all over his face. It's like it definitely looks like David Lynch short.
Oh, thank you. So moving on, the making of Alison Dark, the mobile game companion. So it was very important to think of the mobile game as a separate entity. Someone might come and play this, not necessarily having read the novel, and vice versa. Someone read the novel, might come and play this. And how we navigated both of those was extremely important in laying the foundation for moving forward with this project. It is also a companion in the fact that you're not playing Alison Dark herself and doing all of the things that you would do in the book. It is more of a world building experience where you get to see more of the Fae creatures that Alison alludes to and play as yourself. The team here, and there were a lot of strengths and weaknesses between all of us, myself included. I'm not a gamer and I wanted to make a game. And I don't really play card games very often. So leaning on my team members who were gamers was really important to me. Understanding who liked the front end versus the back end. Some of the fears that we had coming into this. Oh, I've never done this before, therefore I can't. I kind of felt that myself, but I wanted to push myself beyond my limits and actually do something. And so I talked or convinced my teammates into working with me, that we were all on the same platform. And that really helped bring down a lot of that anxiety. The collaboration between all of this was important in making sure that we were utilizing our strengths to the best of our ability. Because I had come into this with my idea, hey, I want to make this mobile game, here is the backstory. I wanted to make sure that all of my teammates had a voice in this as well, and opening that up to their input and different directionalities became extremely important, which is something I absolutely love as a collaborator. People take things in new directions that I would have never expected, and somehow it is better than what I ever thought before. Time management was extremely important in the fact that many of my classmates, my colleagues, were undergraduate students. They had their own course loads, and I, as a graduate student, had my own course load, and my writing partner had a full-time job. And so navigating that was a part of my responsibility. We also wanted to make sure that we were speaking the same language. And that was really challenging coming from the art world and the design world. When I say design, it actually means a very different thing in a gaming engineering world. And so realizing that we were using the same words, but meaning very different things was extremely important early on for us to be able to communicate. And one thing that I did find out about working in gaming, with my background and experience as a designer and project manager, I realized, oh, the foundation of how games are built is actually the same foundation of how design and architecture is built, and even film is made. So there's the pre-process and the ideation, setting the foundation, then there's the whole process itself, and then we've got the production, so the process, the production there, and from there, we've got to finish and finesse, and that takes quite a lot of time. The specs for this game, so I knew from the get-go this was a mobile game because the audience is a young adult, 14 to 22, same audience that we have for the book, mostly female identifying, and knowing this audience tends to like mobile games quite a bit and tends to be on their phone and on social media quite a lot, wanting to play into that, wanting to cater to that. The genre, keeping it in line with the book. We didn't want anything jarring or out of place. So it's a fantasy set in modern day. And it's a deck builder. I wanted something that I would play. I want to tell a story that I would read, and I wanted to play a game that I would play. I'm not a gamer, but there are sometimes I really do like gaming. So how could we incorporate people who love reading, who might not play mobile games at all or games in general? How could we make it easy and accessible for them? Were some of the things that we were also thinking about moving forward. It really came down to like, is this a deck builder or a platformer or another style? And I'm very happy with the results with the mobile game. So we started here, jumping off from this platform of, okay, what are we doing? What is the hook? What is the thing that we're saying? Can you capture all the Fae before they wreak havoc in the world? The idea is that this mobile game would come out 6 months to a year after the book is launched. So people have had a chance to read it, and there is something happening at the end of book 1 that follows along with what's happening here. There's Fae being released at the end of book 1, and now you got to collect them as yourself. It was really important for me to make sure that I think I've mentioned this before, that my teammates shaped the game, and so they helped in figuring out like, what are the core things that we're talking about? Is this artistic? Yes, absolutely, the book is artistic. And do we want to use, what kind of strategies do we want to use? How do we want to incorporate the stories? For me, it was really, really important that this be a non-violent game. And so we had to change our language. This wasn't someone we had to kill. We weren't going to murder our opponents. And when we started shifting our language around that, we started to notice, okay, well, if we're not doing that, how do we play this game? What are we actually doing? And asking some pretty hard questions of ourselves. Any questions so far?
Reema, what is deck building or deck builder?
Deck builder. So this is a game, Magic the Gathering is a type of deck builder, if you've ever played that, where you have a set of cards. It's pretty small and limited, and you're playing either you're against an opponent or against a computer, and you're collecting more cards into your deck to build up that deck and have a really unique collection to start playing against other opponents, against bigger challenges. Does that make sense?
So kind of like Pokemon?
Actually, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the next slide, this is Japanese visual novel meets Pokemon meets Mega Man. So deck builder, Pokemon, Japanese visual novel in the way that some of the characters are actually talking to each other. We went back and forth on how they talk to each other. We actually put some of those features on hold. And then Mega Man for the open level mechanic. So the player really could go anywhere within the chapter, play any Fae, and not have to have a set, well, you have to go here first, then here, then there, and then you get to level up. I was really inspired by Night of the Full Moon, a mobile game that really drew on folklore and had some really breathtaking artwork. And then we looked at Metroidvania to explore for the exploration mechanics there. And of course, some of my teammates were really big into Magic the Gathering. So we picked it apart and we're like, why does this game work? Why do so many people like it? How is this game being played? What are the mechanics behind that? Mechanics, as I learned in gaming, is not nuts and bolts. It's actually the way you put together a game, either on paper or in your head or coding it. But you first need to put it together on some sort of device and say, oh, okay, from here to here, then there to there, and then you can code that in. And the player themselves, we decided they're not going to play as Alison Dark. You're going to play as yourself. These are some of the back end things that we've done that a player might not ever know, but we called our players soulbinders. So they have the power to turn their captured fae into charms, cards. We made sure that it was an open level so that you could collect any fae in any order and unlock new chapters or levels. And then we wanted the more fae that you collected, the more backstories you were getting, and the more backstories that you had, you were going to learn how the fae interact with each other and which fae are strong or weak against. So we wanted the stories to be integral to the playing, but not so integral that you couldn't play without them. Some examples of the characters that we built and used, we focused in on Ireland and the mythology and folk tales in Ireland, since one of the first creatures that our character meets in the novel is a banshee. So we do have a banshee in the game, and this is another area where I opened it up to my teammates and I said, okay, here's a laundry list of all the different folk tales. Which ones do we want to choose? Which ones are you attracted to and why? And they helped us curate which ones we moved forward with, like the Fuath and the Bugain. The core mechanics, so not dealing damage to the enemy, where they're no longer enemies, they're our opponents. We didn't want to kill them or damage them, but instead we decided to use a balancing system. So we had to balance the positive and negative energy and neutralize that. And we saw this as a metaphor for how we have relationships with new people. If someone that you're talking to is in a very high positive state or a very low negative state, you might not be connecting with them on a good level, and you might not actually have a great conversation and keep them on as a friend. So we wanted to play on that and balance the phase energy to collect them. Learning the card stories, we wanted these to enrich the experience of the Alison Dark novel and not break the world for future books. So many of the fae in the mobile game might not ever appear in any of the novels, and a few of them from the novels will appear in the game. And then you're going to collect 3 of each fae to expand their story and level up that card. And it became really important as we were building this core mechanics, setting the foundation. How are we leveraging the mobile platform to make this game the best? Why does it have to be a mobile platform? Why aren't we making this an actual physical deck? And so that became really important too. And we built that into our progression and especially into our interaction graph. So the way that you progress in the game, you're going to collect the fae in each chapter to unlock more chapters. You're going to compile sets of cards to level up and best rare fae. And then you're going to explore every fae to unlock new clues. However, that last one, you don't have to explore every fae, but if you do, you will get more clues and way more knowledge than anyone else. So putting that together in an interaction graph, this was our roadmap of how the game became programmed. You can see here, it looks a little messy. We tried to clean it up and as much as we could so that we could all understand it. Oftentimes we were working together apart. So we were doing the whole COVID thing before COVID. And how could we all see the same thing? So we utilized Unity. We also utilized GitHub and Google. Yes, Google Docs. And so this was a slide in our Google Docs. So the QCID starts off there. These are very prominent. You see a lot of them. You can collect them. The attributes are the colors there. On the right-hand side, you can see the key for that. We also had anti-matches. So the arrows are pointing to what matches really well. And then we had anti-matches. We were really going back and forth on how do these attributes work? How do each of our characters play against each other? Do the attributes help or hurt? And who is common, who is uncommon, and why? And so once we started figuring that out, we were able to really get into developing this game. It took us, I feel like, longer to get to this point than many of our classmates who took this class. It was over 100 some odd students, and we had, I can't remember how many teams, and most of them were getting into it right away, but we were doing something very unusual and really picking apart gaming instead of just making another platform. So another little break, more questions.
Just a little thing to add. I think the reason that we got a higher grade than most of the other teams that basically focused on platforming and just the function of it is because I think I think things can be made like to be manageable, to be like a playable game, but like in order to make something that actually is different, that would more interest the customer, because you know they're gonna look at a platform as like, oh yeah, Mario, huh? But it just like if we have something a little bit different that Alison Dark is, it would definitely sort of gain more interest, at least in my opinion. But it definitely showed in the class.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Duncan. One of my teammates and colleagues on this game is we were doing something very different. Most people were doing a platformer, so they had a roadmap already started. They could look at Donkey Kong or Mario and, oh, okay, this is how that works. And I'm just going to do something similar with a few twists. And we wiped the slate clean and started fresh and broke down all sorts of games across all sorts of spectrums. And we're like, okay, let's pick these things and put them together and have 10 characters instead of 3. So speaking of characters, I collaborated with 2 of my students. One of them did the character art and one of them helped me with the environmental art. And here we see the Banshee. So I had to get her involved pretty early on because I knew that this was going to take a lot of time. And I wanted her to have a lot of freedom in how she was able to articulate these while giving her enough direction to create some characters. So I let her choose her platform as long as it could be imported into an Adobe program. And I gave her the backstories and said, here, shape it in the way that you want. I need it to be vertical. I need these kind of colors. And one of the things that I was really insistent upon is a lot of androgyny within the characters to allow the player to kind of put on their own assumptions and their own ideas of what this character really is. Kind of like you do when you're reading, you get this amazing opportunity to fill in the details. So I wanted to leave that in there. Also, I'm a big fan of feminism and androgyny and non-binary. I'm a non-binary person myself, and so tweaking that to my own personal style there. And it really worked with a lot of our characters. So I built up the cards from the character art, and you can see on the left, so that's our level 1 character, our level 2 character. So you get 2 of the Q Sidhi and you can stack them together to level up. And if you get 3, you can stack them together to level up to level 3. Up at the top, we can see the energy either in the red or the blue, so very positive or negative energy. And then on the left side, we see 3 gems. As a level 1, you get 1 attribute, so that's the purple, which corresponds with our interaction graph. A level 2, you get more gems, so that card can play more characters, and a level 3 has all 3 gems unlocked. We went back and forth a lot on the character itself. Do we show the whole character and then zoom in and get fine details? Or do we start zoomed in and show the whole character? Eventually, we ended up settling this way. And because the artwork was so integral to the story, and the way that we actually ended up showing the stories on the back side here, as you level up, you get more story. So we played with that. As you level up, you get more of the character itself. So it's a little bit ambiguous what we're hiding and what we're giving, what information we're taking away and giving. And then as you get a little bit more information, you get to see more and understand a little bit more about that character. And then as it's a fully leveled up character, it's like, oh, I never thought it would have had this beautiful fiery tail. And on the back side, oh, I didn't realize that this character did all of these things. And hidden within the stories are these color-coded words that give you a little bit more of a clue into what that attribute does. So we don't necessarily tell you, but it's something, if someone likes that kind of thing, they're little Easter eggs. Putting that all together, we have the prototype, so still shots here on the far left. So when you first enter the world, well, rather, when you first enter the world is in the center. In the time of the elders, there was a darkness who saw man's flame and what he could become. The darkness was jealous and sought to extinguish the soul of man. Every fairy tale, folk tale in the Alison Dark world starts this way. And so we started the game that way. And then on the far left, you land in what we call the black hole. This is a place that Alison works at and is very fond of in the novel. So it's like you're sitting in her shoes and you're going to open up this book. We start in Ireland. She starts in Ireland. So you've got your coffee, which is actually it's a clickable item. You get into your system there, the tutorial on the napkin, and then you click on the book and enter into the gameplay. And then on the right-hand side, we have the gameplay itself. So this really was a balance of disciplines, pulling it all together from the storytelling. How are we making the storytelling powerful and not just oh, this is a cool little addition, which I noticed on a lot of deck building games that I had started to play throughout this process. And balancing the graphic design, the imagery, the teammates, their schedules. Again, going back to that, how did we balance the back end with the front end? So the coding, this doesn't work. We can't code it this way. Okay, can we try a different way? What does work? Okay, we need to change this. Balancing our time with getting things done. We had a lot of features we wanted to do. We wanted our charm rather, to be able to talk to the new opponent, which got put on hold. We wanted to have another level, another chapter for India that got put on hold. So this multi-balance was very fine. And I think that we did a really fabulous job with what we had. And I'm going to show you an actual video from our prototype. So this is what we produced by the end of the semester. Welcome to the Black Hole. This book is where you enter the game. It is a single-player, non-violent deck builder that uses turn-based strategy for anyone who loves art and stories about worldwide folklore. At the bottom are your charms. When you open the book, you'll see 4 chapters. Pick one of them to play. Here is your opponent. You don't know how much energy they have, only if they have red or blue energy. And you can see they only have 1 gem lit up. In your deck, you'll want to pay attention to the energy of your charms. Red energy will move the opponent's energy into the red, blue into the blue. Next, you'll want to pay attention to your gem colors. Some colors will make the opponent more likely to ambush you or panic and flip their energy. You might want to take both energies into play. To learn about these gems, click on your charm to find clues hidden in their backstories. In play, quickly swipe up to activate or quickly swipe down to protect your charm. Swipe all 3 to initiate your turn. Your goal is to get the red or blue energy centered and completely white. Then your collect button will light up. Now you've collected that Fae as a charm, and you can read their story in your deck. Can you collect all 10 Fae? So recapping, it was very, very important to collaborate, to be open to new ideas, to be open to change, to be open to things that were coming out of left field because we wanted them to or not. We had a lot of challenges with the competition. So this class we had 3 or 4 different competitions to get our grade. And because a lot of people were doing something that was seen before, when we came to play and test out our stuff, a lot of people didn't understand it. So we didn't get our grade, we didn't pass our round, and we had to go back and redo it and then try again. There were a lot of successes. I think that we really found a unique game to play that when I had it tested with several people in the target audience, they actually really liked it and enjoyed it. Another challenge was that our final test was against a team of, how do I say, outside judges from the gaming industry, from other industries who either made games or liked playing games a lot. And they were much older, and more particularly, they were male. And a lot of them didn't get it because one person in particular, I remember, it's like, I really love deck builders and this is not doing what a deck builder does. Was really upset about that. And like, I get that, but it's not that kind of deck builder. This is meant to be played either casually, I don't know what the stories are, I don't care, I just want to see what happens, or you're learning about backstories and putting together these clues, which is kind of what's happening in the book. And so challenges like that. I think that we all walked away feeling stronger together, my teammates and I. I think that the interdisciplinarity of this collaboration was extremely vital. I challenged my teammates to think about what a mobile game really does, about what a story really does, about why artwork is so important. And really, there was a lot of fear of the unknown on all sides. And I think we all overcame that and realized, hey, you know what? We're all starting off in the same boat. Let's try this and see where it goes. And that sort of experimentation is what really brought this together, because we started to let go of these fears and say, hey, you know what? We don't know. We can't break it. Let's try it anyways. So that is what I've got for today. I want to jump into Q&A and answer whatever you've got for me.
Well, first of all, Reema, are there, I mean, I recognize Duncan's name from your team. Are there other team members here that you see?
I do. Jenna and Nicole are on the call, on the Zoom.
I am so curious about their experience because, like you mentioned, you coming from an artistic background, and I don't know what their backgrounds are. I assume they're more technological, but if any of you had any comments, I would be very curious about your experience, you know, working with an artist, or if you've done that before, maybe you've already done that. I'm just kind of curious about that whole process and this whole it was very interdisciplinary, technology and art in such a complex way.
Yeah, of course, I can go ahead and talk up about it. I'm Jenna. My background is computer science. I just got my bachelor's degree like 2 days ago this summer. I've had strong background in video game development as a whole. And generally, I consider myself definitely more heavy on the game side, but also a good mix on the artist side as well. At least generally out of, because this was done in a class setting. I had done the same thing previously twice before. In both those times before, I was generally like the head artist. I would be the one with the most experience in this kind of situation. So having Reema come in and working on their project was just, you know, a great experience. Like, I feel like it was more of a real world experience than just, you know, collaborating with the same like-minded people to make relatively simple games when, you know, you can get out there and actually, you know, change the scope just with one game or another. I love seeing the gaming industry as a whole expanding and being able to work with uh, someone more on the visual art, more on the just the general I guess creative type side of the art was a great experience. Definitely, as Reema said, like we had to, you know, figure out a way to communicate better because there's many terms that are similar, yet we just say the different wrong words. Uh, um, but I was genuinely surprised with how far we were able to take this prototype in the short amount of time we had, especially with how small of a team we had too, on the programming side at least. It was just us three building this game engine and making it function as you see. But yeah, it was a good overall experience. I would want, you know, more people in my field to work with people like Reema and, you know, make things that are unique to the gaming atmosphere, because we get the same companies putting out the same type of game yearly. They keep making their cash flow, and just personally, I'm not interested. I don't care for what they're putting out because there's no art or innovation behind it. But getting collabs like this, you can actually reach out and push that boundary of, you know, what can you make into a game, and, you know, how can you expand the definition of game, you know, even further into the art world as a whole, not just necessarily technology.
Yeah, truly interdisciplinary, looking at something from a different perspective, right? That's really, it seems, or what I saw. And it's beautiful, by the way, all of you who worked on this, I mean, we didn't really get to, but it's beautiful just on the screen that Reema showed. And I can imagine how beautiful it is to actually get to play. So is it available? Are you going to be able to
eventually
get it out there?
Eventually it needs a lot more work, and there's a lot of retooling that's happening right now in the book itself and planning out all 7 novels. So kind of put that on hold. I do want to get back to it. I just need a lot more funding and a team to do so. Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh yeah, sure. So I actually thought it was like kind of daunting at first when you reached out to me about like this project, but I've always been kind of interested in like character design, like, you know, like the beauty aspect of games, just because I'm also like more into like visual arts and not so much like things like coding and things like that. I've never really gone into that. So I was like, but I can offer what I can do, which is draw characters and try to make them, you know, pleasing to the eye. So I had a lot of fun doing that, and it was really cool to like briefly get to meet the team and see how everyone's putting their separate skills together. I thought it was very cool, like meeting a bunch of people who are into programming and like me bringing like my skills to the table and combining that. I think there's a lot of beauty in all those different talents coming together. And it was really fun. I never like worked on such like strict deadlines before, and I was like, this is actually great. I'm really thankful for the opportunity, and it's really cool to see the things that I drew up on the screen, and the whole entire project looks really great. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, you did really well. I know there were a couple of times you said, I don't know if I can draw a character like that. I'm like, just try. And you did. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
They're so great. I'm so pleased with everybody's work.
Thank you. But yeah, it looks great, like the whole game and everything that got put together in the end. So I was just a small part of it. Y'all really did the most.
I was curious, like to me, it feels like the project itself is kind of what Scream did to the horror movie. It's kind of that postmodern inhabitation of a genre that you're kind of deconstructing and challenging, like you said, some of the tropes and some of the conventions that kind of accumulate within that genre. And so I was just curious what other things you kind of wanted to tackle. Like for instance, you didn't want to do the kill or defeat your opponent. You wanted to kind of repair or better understand the interactor. And so I was curious, were there other kind of tropes that you wanted to kind of tackle within this kind of model?
Yeah, we wanted to be very culturally sensitive to the different places we want to take all the creatures in Ireland and India and eventually more. And figuring that out was really important in what can we take from here and what can we add in that's our own and not just culturally appropriate it. How can we honor and give homage to these things? That was really nice. There are some tropes also within the book and things that we deconstructed. The imagery, for instance, it took me a while to figure out what it is that Alison's drawing and why she's drawing it. And it's very psychologically meaningful in the fact that she's drawing things that are haunting her, things that have been associated with death. And she hasn't dealt with some extreme death situation in her life. And so that keeps coming back and haunting her. And so there's a lot of haunted imagery that sort of crops up throughout the novel and the companion game. And you can see that within the video that I shot. Some of those things, trying to deconstruct, like you said, all of these types of storytelling methods.
Did you all do any market research with hardcore gamers to like kind of get a sense of how they would respond to this type of approach?
I did have 20 students of mine who participated in beta reading, and from there I had some of them test out the game, and I did have one 16-year-old who was willing to test out the game with me. My writing partner did a lot of research in the publishing side and making sure we were on point there. And I did quite a bit of my own market research with the game. His portion was always the writing and my portion has always been the transmedia and the art. So we did do our due diligence there.
And I'd like to add for our class grade, our professor brought in judges from just the local game community, as well as other people who have worked on video game development and design. So our grade in the class was based on the judgment, ultimately, of those kind of people. We would get small feedback from them, mostly just continuing to finely tune the way we have the gameplay. But other than that, they saw it as a great experience and gave us a good grade.
Yeah, there were 2 kids there. They loved it. They just flip, 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 flip.
Yeah, I think my daughter would love this game. That's why I hope it will actually come out sometime.
Thank you.
Reema, will you talk a little bit more about Alison Dark and the different platforms and the transmedia? Because I feel like that's something, you know, when we were in school together, Reema and I were cohorts at the School of Art, and I feel like that was something that was always a challenge to try to explain to people. And I know I didn't know what it was for a while, but once I started looking at the different platforms and I looked at Facebook for Alison Dark, and I saw I started to understand more what that means. And so will you talk a little bit more about the different ways you use the platforms for the storytelling?
Sure. Alison herself has her own Facebook, as do several characters in the novel, and they talk to each other on Facebook. And so there's this story unfolding that is in parallel with the book. And it's slightly different though, because you get to see Alison talking directly to her friends. Oh my God, Dad went off on his rant again, can't believe it, or going to work now, so tired, that kind of thing. So you get a little more access into her psyche. You get more access into the characters because they're posting memes and pictures. And so it's a very different way of understanding them through storytelling. The way that storytelling works in Facebook is backwards. So you're starting with the newest thing first and then reading all the way back through history, versus a book, you're starting from the very back part of the history and reading all the way to the newest thing. So that became an interface, a point where I had to really think about how is this translating in the book and what is Alison really saying? Because if she does this for 3 years and I'm not launching the novel for 5, then there's so much there on Facebook. No one's ever gonna read all the way back and catch up, especially if there's 2 and 3 more books and Alison keeps going on Facebook, it becomes a little bit confusing. So things like that I started to learn as I was experimenting. There is a website, basically a blog that her friends started talking about weirdness in Sullivan. So the magic system is kind of like Harry Potter. If you're a magical person and you wear this magical trinket, you can see the fey creatures, but if you're not, you can't. And her friends and classmates start seeing this weird stuff happening and they don't know why. So they start documenting it in the blog and talking about it. Much like Facebook, it becomes all the newest stuff comes to the forefront and you have to really dig in and read the past stuff to catch up. And so I want to incorporate some of that into the way that this story is told and keep Alison in this world and have her voice be really authentic. I don't want the Facebook to be another marketing gimmick. I don't want it to turn into Alison just saying, hey, buy this thing, because that doesn't seem like what's happening in the book. It would be very inauthentic in my opinion. And so that navigation between reading the book and then watching the video and then going to the Facebook starts to become super, super important in how people put that together, because someone might land on Facebook first and then go to the novel, and how confused are they going to be? Someone might play the mobile game first and then read the Facebook and then go back to the novel, or see the website, and then how are they putting it together? That web is how I think one of the strengths of transmedia is that it becomes very personal to each person in the way that they've put together their own narrative of events.
Yeah, it's just such a reflection of our current way that people express themselves. So I feel like that audience that you are targeting is truly appropriate, you know?
Yeah, and it would be very different kind of story with a different character, or if Alison were 10 years older or 10 years younger, I might not use Facebook, might not use a book at all. And so it really becomes dependent on the story and which media is doing it justice, not just throwing something in there because it looks cool.
Well, I can say that I only followed the Facebook posts and I was intrigued. And it was like a mystery, you know, like seeing her friends and then going to their friends' posts and pages and looking at their history. It was fascinating. And I mean, I never made this connection until you just said it tonight, but when I was a kid, I used to read the ending of all the books before I started them. I don't know why. It's something I just did. And so I think that's why I love that format.
Yeah. Thank you.
How far have you developed the Alison Dark storyline, or is it much more organic? Is it more about creating worlds and just allowing those characters to kind of move within them, or is there more of an arc in terms of the storyline?
If it were up to me, it would be very organic. My writing partner is very mechanical. Builds out the worlds, and he has a very structured way that he does so. It helps us keep everything together, especially for a 7-part novel. There's actually 2 branching paths within the 7-part series. So that is what we're working on right now. Is branch 1 is one timeline, and making that very strong. Some of the things I noticed as I was working through my graduate studies was the balance of male to female characters was way off. There were a lot more male characters. I was like, this is a female fronted book. What's going on here? So we started to shift that around. We've played around a lot with her age, and that's changed the novel and the structure of all of that. And the magic system. Oh my gosh, my writing partner could go on and on for hours about the magic system. It is so cool. It's very fascinating every time he talks about it. I think I kind of get the surface level, and then he talks about something else. I'm like, wait, what? And being able to incorporate all that has been really good. We also wanted to focus on not only female fronted character, but how we're stronger together, and showing different kinds of female characters and having really dynamic characters. So we have a very old female character who's going to come in as a mentor, and then we have a slightly older female character who's going to be a mentor, and we have a young kid, and we do have guys and non-binary and different forms of love. One of the things I fought for very, very hard was to remove love triangles, especially with the main character. So we finally removed that. Very exciting.
Are the Alison Dark books going to be published, or are some of them published?
None of them have been published yet. They will eventually be published. Again, we just changed her age. She was originally 16, 15, and now she's in her 20s. So we have to go through and fix all of that. Yeah, it'll be a while, and I'm hoping it won't be 10 years, but it might be, just depending on how long it takes, because my writing partner wants to make sure the foundation for everything is really good and set for the whole series before we launch book 1. And I completely agree with him on the direction we've taken that.
And then you'll make your fortune, just like in Harry Potter, right?
I sure hope so.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for tonight? Reema, I just want to thank you so much. This was just so interesting and fascinating, and such a different genre than I am used to. And that's part of why I wanted to invite you, because it just opens up so much for our audience that is used to maybe more structured types of visual arts, but to see this different exposure and complexity, I just really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I hope anyone that watches this or has been watching this, challenge yourself see how amazing interdisciplinary practice is. Go beyond what you think that you can do.
Also, you have a website, is that correct?
I do.
That we can put in the chat?
Yeah, www.reema.rocks.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
And so if anybody wants to go to Reema's website and check out more of what she's doing in the future.
It's actually reema.rocks, no .com.
Oops,
R-O-C-K.
sorry. All right, try that.
Nope, I forgot the S at the end.
Oh, at the end. Okay, can I delete those?
Your career as a hacker is over.
Even it never began, as you can tell. Reema rocks. Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, thank you.
You put WWS.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
There we go. John Hyde rescued us.
thank you, John. And you can always go to the Blaffer site where this will be on, what is it? Archived in our streaming on the Blaffer Museum website. So if you really, but thank you, John. I think that is correct.
Thanks so much, Reema. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. This was really fantastic.
Yeah, thanks so much. This
Thank
was
you.
great.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Colleen.
Yes, thanks, Amanda and Colleen.
Yes, absolutely.